guys, so today I'm going to do something that I think is really interesting. Hopefully you'll think it's interesting too, but I'm going to talk about 5 of my favorite badass women throughout history. And then I added 2 in at the end because I'm bad at making decisions. So number 1 is Virginia Hall, who was a spy with the British Special Ops and with the OSS, which you may know is now called the CIA. She was born in Baltimore and went to Columbia University, at that time was known as Barnard College, and she also went to the American University in Washington, D.C. in 1939. She actually also went to school in Europe for a little while and was traveling around in Turkey, and she accidentally shot herself in the leg while she was hunting. So then she had a wooden leg, which originated her nickname, the Limping Lady. She obviously had a lot of other nicknames too, mostly due to her undercover assignments. When World War II began, she joined British Special Operations as an undercover agent. At the time, she was posing as a journalist. And what she was doing there, she was helping the coordination of the French underground in Vichy. And then in 1944, she joined the OSS and did a lot of undercover work for them. Soon after she joined the OSS, the Germans put her on their most wanted list. The Gestapo actually called her the most dangerous ally spy. In 1951, she joined the CIA in the Special Activities Division, and then she retired in 1966. Number 2 is somebody called Ada Byron Lovelace, and hopefully you've heard of her before, but if you haven't, she was known for writing the first ever computer program. She lived from 1815 to 1852 and was a mathematician and a writer, so writing the first ever computer program was way ahead of her time. So basically, there was an Italian engineer named Luigi Menabrea who wrote a transcript of a lecture that was given by Charles Babbage, and Charles Babbage was giving a lecture about his analytic engine. Lovelace was hired to translate Luigi's notes from French to English, and she added in her own notes, worked a lot of stuff out for herself, but basically one of the pages that she has contained an algorithm for the analytic engine that would basically compute Bernoulli numbers. The engine was never finished, so her code was never tested, but imagine if it had. Number 3 is somebody called Nellie Bly, and Nellie Bly was actually the pen name for a journalist named Elizabeth Seaman, and she was a pioneer for investigative journalism. Basically, in 1887, she faked a mental illness in order to be admitted into this really abusive mental institution, which was called the Women's Lunatic Asylum. And she was there for about 10 days. While she was there, she found out about the mistreatment of a lot of the patients, and she also found out that many of the patients were just as sane as she was. Now, I don't know about you, but that really reminds me of American Horror Story Season 2 in Asylum, when Lana is put into the mental institution and does a lot of investigative journalism type stuff there, so I thought that was interesting. And then in 1888, she suggested to the newspaper that she worked for at the time that she just take a trip around the world, because there was a book that was called Around the World in 80 Days, and she actually completed her trip in 72 days. Mostly because she was a badass, but also just because she fucking could. Number 4 is a lady named Margaret Hamilton. She was born in 1936, and she was a mathematician, and she was actually the lead software designer for NASA's Apollo 11 moon landing. Basically, she wrote this program, and what it did was, when there was an error right before the moon landing, it notified the astronauts when the error occurred. And then basically what it would do is it would prioritize all the tasks that were necessary for the moon landing in order of importance, and then anything that wasn't necessary or critical to the moon landing, it wouldn't even worry about. So that was pretty amazing. Now, her areas of expertise is a very long list, so here we go. System design and software development, enterprise and process modeling, development paradigm, formal systems modeling languages, system-oriented objects for systems modeling and development, automated lifecycle environments, methods for maximizing software reliability and reuse, domain analytics, correctness by built-in language properties, open architecture techniques for robust systems, full lifecycle automation, quality assurance, seamless integration, error detection and recovery techniques, man-machine interface systems, operating systems, end-to-end testing techniques, and lifecycle management techniques. That's a lot. The last one is actually somebody who is currently doing really badass stuff. Her name is Malala Yousafzai, and basically she fights for the right to education. She has always believed that women should have just as much right to go to school as men do. So she started blogging about it at age 11, which was actually used in which was actually used by BBC, I believe, and she gained a lot of recognition. Unfortunately, she gained a lot of recognition from the Taliban. In October 2012, the Taliban leaders agreed that she needed to be assassinated, and on October 9th, they got aboard her school bus, asked which student was Malala, and when she was identified, they shot her in the head. She was in a coma for just over a week, but luckily, and I think this is a miracle, she suffered no permanent brain damage. To me, that's kind of a signal from the universe that she was put on this earth to do amazing things, and that's exactly what she's doing. Basically, while she was in the hospital, a UN envoy visited her and decided to launch a petition in her name. This petition had 3 demands. First, that Pakistan must have a plan to educate every child. Number 2, all countries must outlaw discrimination against girls. And number 3, world organizations must make sure that all of the 61 million children who aren't in school are put into some education program. This petition actually led to the ratification of Pakistan's first right to education bill, which was a huge deal. In May 2014, Malala was granted an honorary doctorate by the University of King's College, located in England, and later that year she won a Nobel Peace Prize. Age 17 at the time, she was the youngest person to ever win a Nobel Peace Prize. I heard Malala speaking on the Ellen show recently, and she said this quote that I thought was amazing. Changed my aims and stopped my ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage was born. I'm not against anyone. Neither am I here to speak in terms of personal revenge against the Taliban or any other terrorist group. I'm here to speak up for the right of education for every child. I want education for the sons and daughters of the Taliban and all terrorists and all extremists. As we all know, education is power, and everyone should have the right to that kind of power. In July 2015, Malala did something kind of amazing, and she opened up a school in Lebanon near the Syrian border, which was basically for Syrian refugee girls aged 14 through 18. Malala says that we should invest in books, not bullets. This is a cool story. She met Obama, and when she and Obama were talking, she told him very casually, I think you should stop sending in drones because it's doing a lot of harm. The first bonus is Maud Stevens Wagner, who you may have heard of. She was basically the first female tattoo artist in the United States. I'm currently toying with the idea of maybe potentially becoming a female tattoo artist, so I think that would be really cool. She worked on a circus as a contortionist, I believe, until she met her husband, who was also a tattoo artist. They went on dates in exchange for getting tattoo lessons, and then they ended up married and having a baby who actually grew up to be a tattoo artist. She really gave hand poke tattoos, which are today known as stick and poke tattoos, and if you know what that is, you know why I'm cringing. The tattoo machine had been invented at that time, but she and her husband were actually 2 of the last tattoo artists to ever work by hand. The very last one, I actually didn't know who this person was until earlier today, but my lovely friend Valerio in Italy, ciao bello, he gave me this idea of Countess Elizabeth Bathory, and so grazie Valerio. Basically, she lived from 1560 to 1614. The Guinness World Record book calls her the most prolific female serial killer ever. Allegedly, she had over 650 victims who she tortured and killed. It's rumored that she used to bathe in the blood of virgins, and because of that, she's often compared to Vlad the Impaler of Wallachia, which is actually the person that the book Dracula was based off of. Dracula by Bram Stoker. I just read it recently. You should. It's very amazing. Some of her servants were actually her victims, and she would force them to die of hypothermia by locking them outside in the freezing cold, and then after that was when she decided she would torture them. Also, grazie to my friend Valerio for giving me that tip about Elizabeth Bathory, because I wouldn't have known who she was, so lots of love to you, my friend. Stay educated, stay informed, stay happy, and I'll see you guys later. Get out of the way! Just like when
witches, that black
Get
massive.
out the way, bitch, get out the way.
Evil minds that plot destruction.
Get out the way.